bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
This will be interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network, where I am ensconced 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast. That's the belly of the beast, the Capitol building at 10th and L. In Sacramento, Fornicalia, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Go ahead, say it. No one feels sorry for me. I know that for a fact. This will be interesting because I'm going to check and see if Spreaker continues to play. Right now, I've got Spreaker up on the main screen over here to see if it's continuing. And right now it looks like Spreaker is going because for the past 5 shows, it's been off and on. But I gotta say this. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Angel is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, there, indicating that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com, and apparently Spreaker is working. Yay! Or you can watch on the SHR Media YouTube channel or the SHR Media Facebook page. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here in the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle, and handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress, pretty please. So tonight in the Saloon, we have the honor, shortly, of speaking to Mr. Ron Edwards. We'll see if that works out. I can only hope that it does.
Hello?
Oh my God. Okay, Ron Edwards, I'm going to do your intro in a second, but I have to acknowledge the radio gods, all right? And I have to say this. Number one, I've been having problems with Spreaker for about the past 5 shows. So Spreaker is working fabulously. So thank you for that, number one, Ron Edwards. Number 2, I've had trouble with the Bluetooth on the board, especially last night. And now your call sounds like it's coming through wonderfully, clear, square, great. And so let's check the rest of the technology. Ron, can you actually hear me?
Yes, I can, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, God, this is wonderful. I'm starting out great. Okay. All right. Hey, folks, we had Ron back on, I think it was December 8th last month. And tonight we have the unique distinction of speaking to a man who is no stranger to radio whatsoever again, Mr. Ron Edwards. Now, Ron can be found on his very own radio show, The Ron Edwards Experience, Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific, and I think at 1749 and 183.725 degrees Bolivian time. And that's via KCKQ AM 1180. At americamatters.us, americamatters.us. And he can be heard on SHR Media Sunday midnights on Talk America Radio and Spreaker. And you can listen to the Ron Edwards Notebook Commentary daily via AM News on KCKQ and AM 1180 in Reno, Nevada, not terribly far where BZ happens to have his cabin in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And a little bit more about Ron. Just in case you didn't happen to catch Ron on the December 8th show, Ron is the producer and the host of the Edwards Notebook. That happens to be a syndicated radio commentary, and he is a very talented dude and a very gifted communicator. He's got over 20 years of experience. He's a well-versed journalist with a fiery delivery. And speaking of journalism, we're going to go into that a little bit later with an article. God, I just bigfooted myself. He's got great conversation. He's got great humor. The Edwards Notebook essentially delivers 1.725 metric tons of knowledge in an entertaining and educational format. And basically what he does is he brings a truckload, at least over 2 dumpsters, and two dumpsters and a truckload of unapologetic truth. He's respected by friends and foes for his consistency of conviction and originality. He's served for over 25 years as a news anchor in several Midwest markets, including Cleveland and Detroit. Not teeny-weeny little winky markets, like Frog Dick, North Dakota. And so that is of quite some significance. Ron has been a guest of television, radio, and also has been, he's had numerous articles written about him throughout the United States, including articles in the Detroit News, Headway Magazine, Houston, and The Call and Post in Cleveland. And Ron's radio history also includes being an anchor in major markets like WJMO, WCPN, WGAR, Cleveland, WWJ, WJR, and TK in Metro Detroit. Now, Ron Edwards, back in December, we talked about how we share one immediate common thread, terrestrial radio. So before we go any further, though, I apologize. I'm going to do it this time as opposed to the first time where I didn't do it. I was remiss the first time in not asking you immediately. So, Ron Edwards, where can you be found on websites and social media, and, of course, your radio show, sir?
Well, I can be found right now. It's via Facebook. I've got my own page, Ron Edwards, also Friends of the Edwards Notebook page, which was started by a listener, and also Ron Edwards Public Figure page, all in Facebook. By the way, Facebook really pays attention to what I do, because just last week they wiped out over 1,000 members from my Friends of the Edwards Notebook page. And they had been at first for a while, just whittling off 1 by 1, 2 by 2 for about a year. And they just said, well, let's just really go for it. And they wiped out about 1,000 more people just a week ago. So nice folks at Facebook. So if you're somebody that's telling a modicum of truth, it happened also to a gentleman his name is Matt Bruce. His show also carries my commentary. It's now on 150 stations via that show. They wiped out 1,000 out of one of his sites too. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. But moving on, I can also be found in LinkedIn at the Ron Edwards, my website, which is going to be rebuilt. You can find me there at the Ron Edwards. theronedwards.com. My website. We're going to be redoing that very soon. You can read my columns at Capitol Hill Outsider, also at newswithviews.com. I think that covers it.
You went there, so I'm going to follow up with that in terms of Facebook. I found a site that, and you're on Twitter too, I know that because I talked to you on Twitter. I found a website that will distinguish for people whether or not you have been shadow banned on Twitter. I have been shadow banned on Twitter before. I happen to know that for a fact. But another friend of mine in Texas, Dan Butcher, who leans to the right, but he also has a moderate news push, and he has a presence on Facebook. And he's not a hard right-wing, doesn't write FS words, that kind of stuff. Facebook apparently completely eliminated his presence. Wow. It's just, I don't get it. I don't know what you can do. Now, someone requested to me, and it was somebody on the I think it was the U.S. Gun Owners Association. It looks and sounds like people from Facebook, and I'm not making any kind of a promotional jag about this, and I haven't even been there yet, but I'm hearing more people saying that as a Facebook replacement, because they're tired of that crap, they're going to something called MeWe. I have not been there, but I only mention it because from the people that are fed up with Facebook, that appears to be where a lot of the people are migrating. And Ron, I'm sorry to hear that happened to you. I mean, I am not nearly remotely as significant as you, so I'm not to the point where people are actively screwing with me because I have about 5 followers and I'm not a big social media presence. But I haven't.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I think you're pretty well, because I know with SHR Media, you're very well respected and have a sizable following. And man, when I check out your shows, they're great. And just on that alone, I know there's a significant following. So you discount yourself, sir.
Okay, thank you. You're getting a Christmas card this year. I'm telling you that right now, Mr. Okay. There's an adjunct question that I just thought of as I was driving up to the studio, because this is an actual doggone studio, and it's not in my basement, okay? And I actually have to get in a car and drive to get here. But as I was in the car driving over here, I thought, I need to ask Ron this just because of what's been happening today. Now, you're living someplace in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, so, yes. I mean... how darn cold is it for you out in Michigan right now?
Well, it's today. It was the temperature's moderated a bit. I think the high was about between 7 and 8, something like that. So it wasn't too bad. When we arrived back, I was in Texas over the weekend. My wife and I in San Angelo.
Oh, I was there.
Yeah, nice part of it. And I think there's going to be some growth there very soon and some big changes happening in that city. But yeah, we were there the day we left Monday to come back here was 63 degrees there, and we arrived here Monday night, and I think the temperature was hovering at about close to 12 below zero, but it went way lower than that because by Tuesday on evening, we had a low of around 23 below zero, something like that, and we had wind chills. I don't really count wind chills. I just pay attention to the actual temperature because wind chill is, to me, just something to add to your imagination to freak you out more or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So it was around an actual low of 23, but the thing that I'm not that bothered about extreme cold temperatures.
Okay.
The reason why is because it wipes out a lot of vermin. It kills all. It reduces the insects. We don't have the snake problems that they have in other parts of the country and things of that nature. So I'm cool with it. Because the thing that was so funny, they were telling me in Texas, well, Ron, if you're here another week, you'll start seeing snakes all over the place because they're going to start sunning themselves in February. Next week, in fact, it's going to be in the 70s in that part of Texas already, and the snakes will be out. I said, yeah, I'm getting out of here just in time.
Yeah. Timing is everything.
Yeah, so.
I have a San Angelo story. I went to San Angelo years ago in the 90s, early 90s, for an extradition, which means that I had to go to San Angelo to pick up a bad guy with a partner and fly there with firearms and pick him up and go to the jail, pick him up and fly back. Well, while we were there, we stayed overnight. And what we didn't know at the time was that San Angelo is, at the time, it was a dry county. And I thought, hey, since I'm in Texas, I need to get some Lone Star beer because there isn't a beer more Texan than Lone Star beer. And so we saw a San Angelo guy, and he said, you're not going to find any places around here. Go 2 blocks down that way, and you're going to find beer. We're a dry county, and I'll tell you where to go. And I said, yeah, I'm trying to get some of that Lone Star. And he looked at me, and he said, son, that's cat piss. Okay. All right. Thank you. Good information from a law enforcement officer. And
That's hilarious.
for that segue, which was clumsy, I've done better in my life before. When first you were here, now tonight I hope that we can get more into a topic-driven show. Last time when you were here, we found out some information about you personally, and I remember distinctly that you were saying that you got your inspiration for radio by God and also by Paul Harvey. And at the time, you never really did tell anybody that you wanted to get into radio, if I recall.
No, I told people that I wanted to get into radio.
Oh, you did? Okay.
But what I did not tell them was that I wanted to do my own commentary. When I started hearing Paul Harvey when I was 8 years of age, that was the distinction, the difference. I was afraid to tell anyone that I wanted to do a commentary.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
there was a reason for that, from my trepidation. I don't want to bring a negative, but I was just, who's going to listen to a little black guy? That's what I used to think. I was a little child and then a teenager, still dreaming about it, and through the years, wondering who will listen to me. I mean, all the great commentators were, you had Paul Harvey, you had Charles Osgood, all these guys. And I said, man, who's going to listen to a guy like me giving my opinions on American issues from a positive standpoint concerning this country? And I just dipped my toe into the water by faith. And I put together, I was asked. That's how it happened. I was a guest on a guy's show. And he just broke out and asked me in the middle of his show, would I like to produce a commentary to be aired on his show on a regular basis? And he said, well, we can definitely get you would definitely draw advertisers, and it would be good for you in that regard, and we'd love to have you on every day via your commentary. Just go home and think of a name, and I did. And so started on that show. It was on 3 stations locally here in Metro Detroit. A station in Ann Arbor, and one in Canton, Michigan, and one in, I think it's Livonia, 3 suburbs. And that's how it started. But, I always told people when I was a little guy, I'm going to go do news. I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and I'm going to be a news anchor. That I didn't feel intimidated by letting everyone know that. But giving my opinions and formulating thoughts about the country and all that, I just didn't think that someone like me would be listened to.
I'm going to go back to this a little bit because I'm trying to build a pattern so people that haven't listened to you before can understand a little bit about where I'm going to go, and then we're going to get into some articles and some news of the day, and I'd like to get your opinions on a lot of things that have occurred recently. You grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. You're living in Michigan now. These days, can you give people who didn't catch the first show sort of a little bit of an overview of your growing up, please?
Well, grew up with a very strict disciplinarian dad, but he wasn't mean. There's a difference between the disciplinarian and highly principled, but with love. But you knew you better, fly right, straighten up and fly right. Grew up in Cleveland in a very decent neighborhood when we were little, and wonderful father. I was adopted into the family. He wanted a son. They were a little older, so they were beyond the childbearing age when I was adopted. And wonderful grandma and all of that. Great aunts who loved God, loved the country, and very, very nice situation. And I always thank God for that man that adopted me and loved me as his own son. And despite it all, he was one of the 3 main reasons why I appreciate this country, God, and all of those things the way I do. It's because of the things that he taught me, the good aspects of America. Everybody else was telling me this, that, and the other, the negatives, but he really focused in on the positives. And he's who I listened to the most. And he passed away when I was 12. But And things dramatically changed after that. Things went downhill economically. It's like the neighborhood knew that he checked out. It died, turned into an urban hellhole. Just a dramatic difference. And it was because of his teachings that kept me from going into a horrible negative direction. And I maintained my good grades and all of that, and got into college. I went to New York City for 4 years. After getting out of school, the only reason I came back to the Midwest, to be honest with you, was because I got very sick in New York. I almost died. Not because of partying or anything. I just was so happy. There were so many opportunities that I just never dreamt I would be able to partake of. Off-Broadway plays, voiceover work, I mean, very good money, and, you know, it was just great. And I was one of those guys, another opportunity, I'm going to find a way to do it. I was almost working sometimes 20 hours out of the day. And I just could not understand why people were running around saying, you can't get any opportunities in this country. That kind of was bothering me, too. I mean, all you have to do is work at it, and things do avail themselves, especially in a welcoming city like New York. And so having to get back to the Midwest to get well, I went to Cleveland Clinic, and boom, things were quickly changed. Was just a misdiagnosis situation in New York. But anyway, in my recovery, the radio station that I had been working for in Cleveland found out that I was home. I don't know how, because I didn't contact anyone myself. And they wanted me to come back on the air. So I did. I said, but I've got to get back out of here. I got to get back out of Cleveland. And I said, I'm going to eventually get back to New York. Well, lo and behold, I get contacted by stations in Detroit. So I say, okay, I'll go to Detroit and work there a year or two and get back to the city that I love. Well, obviously that never happened, and I'm still here.
I remember you said last time...
I'm marking calendars.
Didn't you say last time that one of the reasons you got your job in Detroit is because someone stole your resume?
Well, they had... it's a good friend of mine. We went to high school together, worked at our high school radio station together, and always talked about getting into broadcasting, and we worked at radio stations at the same time in Cleveland. And then he moved to Michigan, and what he did was he did get my information, but the big thing was that he had recorded me off the air and passed it around here in Detroit. And that's what happened, and that's how they contacted me. And so he's the one that got me locked in this prison. So, yeah. So anyway, you know, living outside of the city, it's a very nice area where we live, but it's just not where you want to be. It's not even Cleveland. It's just I can't explain it. It's.
Well, let's go back a little bit. I know that your belief in God has been consistent throughout your life, and your faith was first explained to you by your father, and I'm pretty sure that he built your foundation of faith. I remember you saying that he explained the founding fathers, and he was a huge motivation for you. So in other words, you had a strong and inspiring dad, at least up to the age of 12.
Yes.
And so that is making to me a very important and positive statement. And the other thing that you mentioned last time and a couple of minutes ago is that I'd like to make note the fact that you were very much wanted. You were adopted, and people that adopt kids are special people, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Absolutely wonderful.
You're correct. The dad wanted me. You know, just let me make that, as Nixon would used to say, let me make it perfectly clear.
Okay.
It was the dad that wanted me. So that was the main emphasis. The rest of them, well, the grandma was great. Nana was great. But like I said, it was a total dramatic change after the passing of Dad. The home life, everything, it was just like from from heaven to hell. It was just a total different. But, we don't need to dwell on that stuff, because the bottom line is I stuck to what my dad taught me and used that as my guidepost to keep me in the right direction.
So let's get to the meat of the matter, because this is eventually going to tie in with a lot of the stories that I have tonight. Okay. I think it's clear to both you and me that the presence of a strong father in a nuclear family, black or white, is an amazingly stabilizing factor and a mandatory factor in families, something that is startlingly lacking, and I remember you spoke about this last time. It's lacking in families today, and in fact, even the number of families are on the decline, and I think that's purposeful. Some information.
Oh, it's by design.
It is by design. I came across some information, Ron Edwards, 2 days ago, and I never thought about this. But I discovered that in most urban areas around the United States, builders and people that are inviting builders into their areas, they are purposely eschewing 3-bedroom homes and apartments, things that are necessary for a family with actual children. And I think that's by design. I discovered there are actual local codes written against building 3-bedroom housing. That just astounds me, sir. That astounds me.
Well, I'm not surprised at all whatsoever, because my dad used to tell me that a nation is as strong as its family. And when you have a leftist culture that is built against the nuclear family, against the authority of a father in the household, against the teaching of the moral underpinnings that maintain family life, and out of family life, based on the American way, where each generation succeeds above the previous generation. I mean, that's been the going way for many decades, until very recently during the Obama years, where you had generations starting to decline rather than continuing on an upward mobile direction. That's all by design, because no nation can remain strong if their families are weak and their borders are open. And those are the two things that are most attacked on a U.S. basis internally by the left in this country. That is why, for instance, in New York City, families are very broken in the great area called Harlem, where you have so many abortions that it outpaces the birth rate. And so you automatically have a decline of the population of blacks in this country. And the leftists are trying to replace American blacks with these earthly hooligans that they're bringing into this country through our southern border.
Absolutely correct. It's funny you should mention that. We got about 1 more minute before the bottom of the hour break. I have specific articles that I brought here tonight on that specific topic. There are so many articles that I want to bring to your attention and bring to everybody else's attention. Folks, we're talking to Ron Edwards of the Ron Edwards Notebook. He's been a radio host for 25 years now, a great conservative, a great dude, a great man, who definitely believes in the family and God and the father figure in the family. When we come back after the break, he wrote an article recently, I think it was January 25th he wrote this, and it's called The Real Mission of the Democrats and Rhinos. And when we come back, I'd like to read that, because I think that provides a really stellar overview of, if you want to know Ron Edwards, you're going to find out about him when we come back. I'm going to go over his article, and I think that's probably one of the finest summaries that I've read recently about what is truly happening here in the United States. Folks, we're going to take a break. This is BZ. I'm the Bloviating Zeppelin right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network from the SHR Media Studios. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am BZ, the Bloviating Zeppelin, right here on BZ's Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am broadcasting in the sumptuous palatial SHR Media Network studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. I wish I was in another state, but unfortunately I am not. That's another topic for another day entirely. We are talking to Ron Edwards, radio host of his own show. He's on 120 plus terrestrial radio stations for the Edwards Notebook. And we were talking about getting to know Ron Edwards a little bit better. I found this story, I think it was on newswithviews.com, and you wrote this just a few days ago on the 25th. And if I could, I'd like to read this because I think it gives an excellent overview into not only yourself, but your views and your world view and how that really does inform you. And it's a truth-telling article, which is another reason that I really enjoy it. You start out, from the moment Democrats fooled black Americans into thinking that it was the political party for them, it's been downhill ever since. As much as I despise the evil philosophy that political party promotes, I point out their ability to never waver from their malicious goals. From the beginning, the Democrat Party stood for oppression of one kind or another. We all know about the Democrat Party leaders' historic hatred of blacks, especially the men, and like Muslims, only saw them as slaves or to be denied a decent life. Then, of course, there were Jim Crow and the eugenics practices. The Democrat Party hits just keep on coming through various cruelties, lies, and horrendous political practices. The Democrats remind me of a plague of evil that circulates throughout different locations and brings nothing but a lowering of living, moral, economic, government, educational, religious, and even entertainment standards. In the United States, wherever Democrats have a long-term stronghold, the standard of living deteriorates much faster than by any other organization or cause. Yes, there are the George Soroses of the world and other enemies of the United States working to destroy our beloved republic, but truth be told, if those enemies did not have such a good friend in the Democrat Party, they would be obscure entities, not the major threat to America that they are today. Another big ally of the Democrat Party is Planned Parenthood. As it became illegal and later out of fashion to directly brutalize black Americans, Democrats were hell-bent on finding other methods to harm blacks. The Negro Project, a superior and most informative book written by Bruce Fleury, chronicles the history of Democrat Party friend Margaret Sanger and her diabolical, duplicitous, dangerous, disastrous, and deadly plan for black America, chronicles the dastardly mission of Democrats against black Americans. Unfortunately, the Democrat Party has grown to become a multifaceted harbinger of evil intentions against the United States as a whole. In every possible endeavor, be it taxes, border security, American cities, schools, religious liberty, the two sexes created by God, the Constitution, etc., the Democrats have fought to enact policies that lead to destruction. Unfortunately, for several decades, the Democrats and their allies have not been adequately challenged. In fact, they've had their way so long that they still do not accept the fact that Mrs. Clinton lost to Donald J. Trump for the presidency 2 years ago. Their hatred against Trump is not rooted in rational thought or legitimate complaints, but rather the hatred emanating from Democrats toward Trump and patriots in general is steeped in their leftist globalist ideology. When Trump stood up to the United Nations, China, and European allies who had been refusing to pay their fair share for their own protection, it infuriated Democrats and rhino Republicans, and I'm glad you pointed that out. The reason being is that the Democrats and rhinos don't like anyone, including Trump campaigning on America First policies. But Trump battling to overcome the Soroses, Stein, United Nations, and Democrat Party cabal that has been undermining our republic by every way possible, that was too much for them to handle. How else would you explain Nancy Pelosi, little Chucky Schumer, and many others preferring the wants and desires of illegal border crossers over the unalienable rights of you and I to live in peace and tranquility in our own republic? It's not surprising that the same Democrat political party that has orchestrated a multi-decade mission of destruction against the black American community is now working with others to open the door of destruction against America. For example, when the Democrat majority is calling for higher economy-harming taxes for us Americans, the IRS is giving major unearned refunds to illegal border crossers that the Democrats want to keep pouring into the United States to our detriment. Why else do you think Democrats are okay with spending $166 billion tax dollars annually on illegals, but they've refused to approve any money for better border security that includes a wall. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi did offer one big fat dollar. The bottom line is, the Democrat Party is a very dangerous institution consisting of members, both old and young, who are out to undermine our nation by infiltrating everywhere and destroying her from within. What they have done to the American black community, they seek to inflict upon our entire republic. If the conditions now dominate throughout the black American community, if they become common everywhere, America is going to collapse. The United States of America is worth fighting for, but we will not rescue and restore her unless we, the people, seek providential guidance and we reestablish the great values, principles, and work ethic that made her the one-time envy of the world. God bless you, God bless America, and may America bless God. Frankly, I think that's one of the best summaries that I've read recently. And so thank you for writing that, Ron Edwards.
Well, thank you for, checking it out. I appreciate that. When I read, when I write these things, it's really from the heart, man. I mean, of course, there are facts and things there that people can fact check and all that, but really, this nation is the greatest place on earth. It is still, with all of her problems, she's still the best place on earth, I think, in my opinion, anyway. But we better hurry up and start rocking and rolling and rebuilding this country, because over the Christmas season, I did a lot of searching of cities around the world, such as Seoul, South Korea, Shanghai, Tokyo, and some other cities around the world. And these cities are just, oh my God, they're mind-boggling. And they're just their beauty, their cleanliness, and I love the lighting. It's just so bright at night and things of that nature. And technologically, they are far superior to most of our cities today. We're being left behind in so many vast areas.
Correct.
Militarily, people are telling me on one hand it's all BS, but when they were talking about these cyber missiles that Russia is supposed to be producing right now, that is far superior to anything we have or have had in the past. And yet we've been sitting on our duffus. So we do have Ali Obama to blame for putting us in this position. Under George W. Bush, we were still the mightiest nation on earth, bar none. But now that is in question. Are we the lone superpower? I could not, with a straight face, tell you that we are. I can't do that. It is by God's grace that China and Russia have not just overrun this nation. And I can back up when I'm saying that they have the ability to do that. And there's not much we could do.
It's a sad commentary to say, I believe that we still are, but in the meantime, we have let many of our defense systems lapse, which is extremely sad. I have two articles that I'd like to read that were very pointed, and I think they were penned last November, right around in there. And a good deal of the point of these articles had to do with the November 8th, the midterms and whatnot. One of them is by a guy named John Miller. He's a White House correspondent from CRTV, and that article is called "The Conscience of a Black Conservative." And then the other one, in contrast, is by an author named Renee Graham, and that's from the Boston Globe, and that's called "Memo to Black Men: Stop Voting Republican."
Yikes.
And when I'm just going to start with this article because my guess would be you're going to resonate with this in the first sentence. This is an opinion piece by John Miller, "The Conscience of a Black Conservative." And he starts it out this way. "Welcome to my inbox. You should be shot dead by a cop. Where's a racist cop when you need one? And those are just the messages that don't call me Uncle Tom and house nigger, and yes, the N-word with a hard R. My name is John Miller. I'm a black conservative who voted for President Trump. I'm also a White House correspondent for CRTV, a digital video platform that airs right-of-center views in a media landscape that often discounts people like me because of my views. Civility is a prevalent topic in today's dialogue, but there seems to be a sense that a lack of it is a problem that only exists on the right. I'm here to tell you my inbox is proof of the contrary. Incivility is abundant on the left, and in fact, flat-out racism is too. If you're a black Trump supporter, you know exactly what I mean. And unfortunately, it's no longer just faceless internet trolls. Now when Kanye West meets with Trump, mainstream cable news panelists say he's what happens when Negroes don't read. Is 2018 really the year we make calling black people Negro great again? The invective I receive often comes from people who claim to fight for social justice and against racism. It's so hypocritical, it's laughable, and so that's what I usually do. I laugh. But tell any other group in America to laugh off racial abuse, and the double standard becomes quite clear. We're told it's acceptable because black conservatives are race traitors, trying to be in the master's good graces. If we wanted to be in the good graces of elites, being conservative would be the worst way to do it. When an editor of the New York Times made an announcement that the paper would like to hear from readers of color about their own experiences with having political views that don't align with what their community expects, I responded with my story. Of course, once they received an actual submission, they promptly rejected it. I suggested maybe we can find common ground on not calling black Trump supporters Negroes, but apparently we can't. Still with hostility at a fever pitch, I think it would have benefited their readers to get to know at least one of those strange black deplorables. He grew up, he says he grew up in the Brentwood area of Los Angeles, and despite the liberal culture, my household wasn't very political. If anything, it was a musical household. He says, he writes, my dad is a jazz bassist who came from humble beginnings in Jamaica, Queens. And with just a high school education, he worked his way up to become a Grammy Award-winning artist and a business owner. He worked hard for what he achieved, and he instilled the same work ethic in his children. Let me stop right here. Ron Edwards, does any of this sound familiar?
It sounds very familiar. I hope to meet the gentleman one day. We can compare notes, but yeah. It's funny, though. What I've developed, what helped me to develop thick skin with these people when they call those names and all of that, especially the Uncle Tom one, well, I just call them an Uncle Joe, or if it's a female, an Aunt Margaret, because they say that because if you're black and you're conservative, well, you're just running behind the white man's philosophy. Well, I asked them, you idiots, where do you think that communism came from? Where do you think that the socialism you follow behind, that you lap up, came from? Do you think that came from a Zulu warrior in Africa? No. It came from a white guy.
Yeah.
Ingalls, does that a familiar name? But anyway, and of course, rather than try to answer me in some civil manner, it just goes into ad hominem attacks, because there's, if they answer me, they know that they're trapped. And so they get into these nasty attacks and things like that, start threatening. I'll never forget several years ago, when we were battling on behalf of two ladies who were attending the University of Michigan, and they were passed over. They had been passed over for admission. They eventually got in, but they were passed over initially for two blacks who were less qualified to enter into that university. It was this affirmative action garbage. And so we went to bat on their behalf. And man alive, my friend, who was also in the struggle, was approached by a liberal minister. And now you have all the major TV stations right there, probably waiting for any of us conservatives to make a mistake. But this liberal minister walks up to my friend. He knew not to come in my direction, but he walks up to my friend and says, I will come to your house and rape your wife. This is a liberal minister telling my friend this.
Wonderful.
Because he was also there. Because I had to go there. I was a Senate committee hearing, and he came to support me and all that, and so it was nasty. And I said, "Oh man, I wish he had come at me because it would have been a different result there. My friend's a lot nicer than I am and all that, but I felt so bad. I felt worse because the media totally. In fact, they turned their cameras off.
Why?
And I went up to a couple of them. Yeah, I went up to a couple of them. I said, "Wait a minute. This is beyond politics. I know you all are all bleeding heart liberals. But if you love blacks so much, why is it that you will not report on this situation? This black man was attacked verbally and threatened. Well, his wife was threatened by a minister of the cloth. He's a Christian. Why don't you go after this Christian who did such a nasty thing?" But they wouldn't because it was a liberal attacking a black, putting him in his place, supposedly. So I see this all the time. All the time, man. And some of the comments I'll receive, but that's okay. That lets me know that I'm doing the right thing. So moving on. We're working to rebuild this great nation and be a part of a resurrection because it's going to happen. Despite all the things you see going on against our great president, against our vice president, and against others who are in government, like Jim Jordan and others who are struggling to do the right thing for this republic. Their works will not be in vain, despite how it looks.
You are absolutely correct, sir. Oh, Dan, I can't even hit my bell right. There we go. You're correct. When we, let's see, we got about 8 more minutes before the top of the hour break. After the top of the hour, we're going to get really into... Oh, let me stop right there. Whew, I'm glad I didn't put my foot in my mouth. I will not make the assumption. You are welcome here, obviously, for the first hour. You are welcome to be here for the second hour if you have the time. If you don't, that's cool. Always have show prep, and I've got stuff to do. So it's up to you, sir. I'm not going to make that assumption. I'm going to let that decision obviously be yours.
Sure, I'll hang around. I'll just go get some water, and we'll sit in for the second hour.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I greatly appreciate that. So after the top of the hour break, when we come back, what you just said, I think resonates and is a stellar statement because just when we think that all is lost, I submit, particularly next year in 2020, all is not going to be lost. And there's the reason that I'm going to use for justification on that is, I believe, the same reason that's hurtling around your brain housing group right now. I'm going to get to that. Before I do that, I want to touch very briefly on this counter article written by Renee Graham from the Boston Globe. And okay. I'm going to read a portion of this. The headline says, "Memo to Black Men, Stop Voting Republican." Now, when I say some of these, when I read some of this, if some of this is in direct contrast to what you know or have experienced, stop me and let's talk about it.
Okay.
Anyway, she says, and starts this way, "Brothers, we need to talk. In the midterm elections, about 17% of black men voted to give Texas Republican Ted Cruz another term in the Senate. About 11% supported Georgia gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp, even though he did his best as a Republican Secretary of State to disenfranchise more than 1 million voters, the majority of them African American. So here's my request. Black men, vote like black women."
Ugh.
And she continues and says, "Yes, black men vote consistently for Democratic candidates, but there is no more unshakable bloc than black women. More than 90% voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and against failed Alabama Senate candidate and accused sexual predator Roy Moore last year. In Tuesday's midterms," and you can see this was written right in November, In Tuesday's midterms, 94% of black women voters supported Beto O'Rourke, Cruz's opponent. In Georgia, 97% of African-American women backed Democrat Stacey Abrams. Her opponent, Kemp, only resigned as Secretary of State after turning his contest against Abrams into a hot mess of voter suppression. That's what it was. It was a hot mess of voter suppression. Black women generally don't vote against their self-interests. We vote as if our lives depend on it, because they do. I think you have the general tone of the rest of that article.
I'd like to jump in and say something.
Please.
Most people are afraid to say it, or they don't think of it. But the worst two things working against the black man are the liberal black female and liberals in general, or leftists. Black women and women in general are empowered by leftism, which opposes the traditional family, traditional positions in society, and none is greater than the other. And when I speak of a traditional sense, because I respect a mother as much as I do as a dad, or vice versa. They're just different roles. But because of this gangster woman war against male authority, against God, against traditional things that make a strong society, they just want to empower their organ. You know, that's why they wear the little pink hats. And they place themselves above men, especially in the black community, and they expect men to continue to follow behind like steppin' fetchits and do their bidding. And they play the role as the big mammy, big mama. And you've seen it in the old movies. The liberals, they put these movies together where the women are the authority, and they kiss up to the white guys, and they talk down and mean and nasty to the black guys in the movies, even in their households. I mean, this stuff is so diabolical, and they play it so well because they benefit. I remember interviewing, and I think I mentioned this the last time I was on your show. I was interviewing an executive, British Petroleum. He's now dead, and he admitted to me flat out that they hired less qualified black females in the computer, in the high-tech area, because of things that they could do with the black females that they couldn't do with the majority of white females that they would hire, whether they were married or not. They really played along. Now, who talks about being a victim so much of male chauvinism, sexism, and all that? Black females. But yet they play along with it all the time and use those positions against the black man. I was a few years ago when I was on a speaking tour. I was in Alabama, and they were talking about an auto plant. I think it was a Nissan plant that was built down there.
Okay.
And I was just goofing off. I was joking about it. I said, boy, I know that. And they said they hired a lot of blacks. And I said, I bet you it's probably about 60% females, and they're screwing half of them. And I was just joking around, goofing off. And the guy turned around. He says, "You're absolutely right."
Holy crap!
He says, "Oh, it was in the Huntsville area where I was, and they said, I know you're goofing around, Ron. You're just joking around, but you're spot on." And I said, "Oh, I was hoping I was just that's all it was a goofy joke." But they love playing the role. You know, they'll come out and say, vote Democrat and be against whitey. But what is more white than communism? I mean, seriously, leftism, because it's just as white as Americanism or the Constitution. I mean, both were created by white men. One is good, one is evil.
That's a very interesting point. that you bring up.
I choose the good.
Folks, we're going to have to take a break. It's at the top of the hour. It's 9 o'clock here on the left coast. It's midnight, the witching hour on the far right coast. We're talking to Ron Edwards, radio host for 25 years. He's on 120 terrestrial radio stations. It's an honor to have him here tonight. The Edwards Notebook is where you can hear him. When we come back, we're going to get into some specific issues and some specific articles that have come up recently. And I have to warn people, I'm going to do my very level best not to get too grotty in this, but the issues that are up, especially this past weekend, sent me about 210 over 190. So when we come back, we're going to address some very important issues that I most definitely want to hear Ron Edwards' thoughts about. I'm the Bloviating Zeppelin. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. I am right here in the SHR Media Studios. We're going to take a break and be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. This is the second hour of the Bloviating Zeppelins. That is I, Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Go to shrmedia.com. I wish I could tell you that Spreaker was functioning perfectly. It's not. We've been having some serious issues with Spreaker. It's not playing well in the SHR sandbox. And if you happen to be in the shrmedia.com chat, what I've said is you have two alternatives. And if you're on the internet, choose one. We're simulcasting video on both. You can go to the SHR Media Network page, Facebook page. We're streaming there. Or you can go to the SHR Media YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, and in the query field, just type in SHR Media, and it'll show you which show is streaming live right now. So even though Spreaker is not playing well with us, you can still go to Facebook or YouTube and just type in SHR Media or SHR Media Network. You'll be able to go to either one of those, choose one, and you'll hear and see all the buttery little fuzzball goodness that's going on here in the studio. What I'd like to do right now, we're talking to Ron Edwards, great American, great conservative, been in radio for quite some time. Dude has some serious chops and writing skills. He is on 120-plus terrestrial radio stations, and I appreciate his staying so late because Ron is on the East Coast in Michigan. I can hear his teeth chattering from here. Actually, he's inside. Folks, don't worry about Ron. Ron is warm. He's okay. Okay. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to endanger Ron Edwards in any way. But it is a little cold in Michigan right now, as folks probably know. What I'd like to do is there have been a series of incidents and events that have been documented, well documented, that I'd like to bring to the attention of everybody here, and specifically to Mr. Ron Edwards himself to get his opinions. Because one of the things that I want to emphasize that Ron said just before the break is, despite the fact that it looks like all of this stuff is falling apart, fear not, because this is setting a lot of things in motion. And with a series of what I hope to be clear examples that I want Ron to weigh in on, I think, folks, that you will begin to see that this is leading somewhere. And if you think, again, that all is lost, fear not. Because like Ron Edwards said, do not fear. I don't believe, he doesn't believe, that all is in fact lost. Here's an incident that just occurred about 2 days ago. The headline is, Democrats to strike, so help me God, or excuse me, so help you God, from the oath taken in front of key House committees, a draft says. And, of course, there was a lot of pushback from this, and they said, well, it hasn't passed yet. But this is perfectly endemic and illustrative of where the Democrats are going right now. And so Ron Edwards, hey, that's a great idea to strike, so help you God, from any oath taken in front of any House committees, isn't it?
Well, it's great if that is your mindset, but that is just symbolic of what side, the mindset rather, of the Democrats. And the thing is, all is not lost as long as we push back against the madness.
Yes.
The problem is Republicans and many Christians have been infected with what I call a spine disease. It's like, how a scorpion comes, and when it gets its victim, it stabs them in their spine, and drains the strength out of them and dissolves them, whatever, destroys them anyway. Well, the church, especially, and the Republicans, for the most part, have been very spineless in recent years. And so they're having conniption fits because Trump is acting like an actual leader.
Yes.
And he's acting like someone who actually kind of likes this country a little bit and is doing what someone would do who likes the country, fighting for it, defending it. And you would expect others to do the same. But what's going to happen, more and more people, you're seeing people like Jim Jordan and a few others, but it's going to start increasing because one thing that people are, they're creatures of habits and they're creatures of observance. If they see something going on and it goes on long enough, pretty soon people start coming into the ball game and start following as well. That goes for the good as well as the evil. I understand that Hitler's, he came out with this, if you tell a lie often enough and you tell it, blah, 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 and people will believe it. Well, the opposite is true as well. You tell the truth often enough, long enough, and the people will eventually believe it as well. But the thing is that we have to be out there telling the truth. We have to be just as energetic and just as bold, if not more so, as those on the other side who are working for our destruction. And I try to, the other reason why you mentioned, you read a little bit of that young lady from the Boston Globe.
Correct.
I look at people like that. I used to look at them more negatively than I do now. I feel sorry for them now. When I study more of the Word of God, I understand that these people are broken. If it's, maybe just broken in their minds, but they're broken people. And broken people usually fall for garbage and follow garbage and then try to spew garbage. Hurt people hurt people. And so when people, even if it's self-induced, victimization is now an industry, a self-proclaiming industry.
My God, is it? Yes.
And they use it like a pimp uses a young lady that he captures. They use the victimology to make white people back off. And it's funny, I spoke down in San Angelo, and I told the audience, which I guess 99% white, and I said, white people, please, will you please stop with the white guilt madness? Because you're only hurting yourself, and you're really hurting people like me.
I call those people GOWPs, G-O-W-P. I called them guilty, overeducated white people, GOWPs. And I just told them, and I told them why. I gave them examples. I said, you're doing more harm. You almost killed this country. I knew a lot of white Republicans that voted for Ali Obama that first time. And they were telling me that they were trying to lecture me about being insensitive and about not wanting to give a black man a chance. I said, wait a minute. You were the same Gumps who turned against Herman Cain when he was totally lied on. His momentum was really growing, and yes, it
boom,
was.
boom, boom.
Yes.
This lying wonder comes out of the woodwork, and his support evaporated. I said, you all have a propensity to give more support to an evil black man who you try to twist and into your own image. Oh, but he means well. He's going to do good. Whereas a good guy like a Herman Cain, you're willing to throw him to the wolves because people through the media, imagery, and through programming are more apt to support an evil black guy, even though they won't run around saying, why are those black guys like that, blah, 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 blah. But seriously, in most cases, they're more willing to support the evil black guy. They did with Ali Obama twice. I'm talking about a lot, even white Republicans. Some of them turned against me for the first time around, and they said I was just awful. So because I did not support, because I was intelligent enough to see through this guy who I don't believe he's really black at all. I think he's something else. And people just got hosed. They got fooled. And if they were, and I would tell them, if you were too stupid to look into his record as a senator, the only one who voted at that time to leave an aborted baby in the dish to die if they survived the abortion, that told me all I needed to know. That one act was enough to say, you know what, he's not worthy of paying attention to. Let voting for president? Oh, please. And I said, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Finish your thought, because that leads me to another segue, so please finish what you were going to say.
And so I said, I told them, I said, look, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Banneker, Frederick Douglass, all these great people who overcame tremendous odds in their lives and did great stuff, they've got to be spinning in their graves if God has, and I know they're all in heaven. If God allows them to have a glimpse at what's happening now, what the white people in this country are allowing to happen in this great nation. Whites allow themselves to be trashed to no end, and they're afraid to stand up for themselves.
I'm going to paraphrase poorly. Something similar to the phrase that I'm sure you have heard before is that when people don't stand up, when strong people don't stand up for things, that's when things tend to tank. I want to move in a different direction now, and I have to make an admission, make a confession that the topic that we're going to be talking about now wasn't anything that was on my radar, that I was actively addressing as an issue for quite some time, and my bad on that. But now something came out recently where I don't think anyone with, if the Democrats or leftists are talking about a modicum of compassion. There's an issue that just recently came out where people bandy about the word evil, I think much too readily. And the topic that I'm about to address, in my opinion, exemplifies true evil. I can think of no other way to quantify it. The past week, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo came out with his Reproductive Health Act in the state of New York. And the World Trade Center and other landmarks, they were lit up in pink to commemorate and celebrate this. Cuomo called it was an historic victory for New Yorkers and for our progressive values on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade from 1973, and essentially allows people in the state of New York abortion up to birth. Once that came into my wheelhouse, I was, and again, I can throw the word outraged out there, but it went further with a Virginia governor who apparently was not to be outdone, who said that he's going to make sure that he rams through a bill to allow abortion to occur up until birth, and actually after birth. Folks, if I was on the fence, and I can't say I was on the fence, but it wasn't my primary job one issue, especially this past weekend, I cannot think of any other word to embrace than evil. These bills embrace evil. I can think of no other way of stating this. It took me, I corked off on the Sackhead show last night with Sackhead's Clint, and I said some bad words. And I'm not going to say them tonight because I'm calmer. I've gathered myself. But we all know that since these bills have been spewed forth in New York and also advocated highly in Virginia, beyond that, and I have some audio to share with you, Ron Edwards, and the rest of the people that are listening, from that Virginia governor, that will disgust you. But you need to hear what's actually happening. Now to go back to what you said, Ron Edwards. People are finally starting to see, to have the sheet pulled off the progressive movement. This is who they are. This is who they are. Ron Edwards, what was your reaction when you heard these things?
Well, anger, disappointment, outrage, also asking God for wisdom and mercy, because here's the thing. America continues to curse herself. I think there's 7 states now that where it's legal to kill babies up to birth. 7. A nation that promotes death is setting itself up to die. How? Number one, see, one thing leads to another.
Yes.
And ever since 1973, we have had a horrible problem with the border, or soon thereafter.
Yes, this dovetails.
Yeah. When you kill off your own, you're supposed to be the great nation on the planet. So you decide to kill off your own, but then you turn around and tell people, well, we need these workers. We need people to come in to work. And not only are we physically killing people, see, they're also mentally and spiritually killing people that are allowed to come to fruition and, grow up and go to school and all of that, becomes educated fools in what are called colleges. So you're killing a nation in a multiplicity of ways. There's spiritual and mental death as well as physical caused by abortion. Both of them are short-circuiting our nation's ability to function as an American nation. So then you have the leftists purposely promoting all this, while at the same time bringing in people from all over the world through our southern border, whether it's the educated people and the technicians from India and China and elsewhere, or the knuckle draggers from Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, who are coming over here to the tune of about 17,000 criminal acts a year against Americans, if not more than that. This is all by design. Death by design. Death leads to more death. Now,
I concur.
Now it's spread into the medical profession. Great University of Michigan and other so-called great institutions where they're trained doctors no longer require them to take the Hippocratic Oath, which says, do no harm. They kill you. It's not on the law books like in the Netherlands and other places where when you're old or you're chronically ill and it's very severe and you're bedridden, that they just take you out openly in the Netherlands. But I know they're doing that here. People get cancer and they refuse chemo, and now they die quickly all of a sudden after a shot. Oh yeah, this non-caring attitude now that is so pervasive across the board. It all stems from abortion that was legalized in 1973, based upon a lie. And so it just continues to. It's like with a pebble in a lake, and the ripples just keep on going. And if we don't push back against this tide, I don't care if we have to sound as crazy as the Antifa people. We've got to push back and make ourselves heard, make them say, wait a minute, those people, they mean business. Until they really understand that we all mean as much business as Trump, we will continue to see the encroaching nothing. I call it the nothing. Do you remember the movie, the Never-Ending Story?
Yes.
And you saw the nothing. And it was based on, I think it was, if I recall, it had to do partially with the mindset of the people, I think. And you had this nothing. It was killing the rock people and all of that. It was the towns and everything. Everything was being eaten up by the nothing. The trees, the forests. And it's like the nothing of leftism is just eating out the core of America.
It's the nihilism of leftism. The belief essentially in nothing. Knowledge is power. Awareness is power. Being informed is power. Under the Reproductive Health Act in New York, now, the Reproductive Health Act says, quote, abortion is one of the safest medical procedures performed in the United States. Well, now, under the Reproductive Health Act, the fact is non-doctors are now allowed to conduct abortions, and the procedure could be done right up to the mother's due date if the woman's health is endangered or if the fetus is not viable. The previous law allowed abortions after 24 weeks of pregnancy if a woman's life was at risk. I'm going to transition over here a little bit. And like I say, knowledge is power. There was an audio cut that I heard 2 days ago, perhaps yesterday, and I had to search it out. It was in an interview with, I think the program was like Ask the Governor or something like that. That new Virginia governor. The old one was Terry McAuliffe, who was rotten as the day is long, working in concert with Andrew McCabe's wife and siphoning millions and millions of dollars. That's a story for another day. But the new Virginia governor is a dude named Ralph Northam, obviously a Democrat. And now what they're advocating for is post-birth abortion. Well, number one, what is post-birth abortion? Well, it's not abortion. It's killing.
Murder.
It's I can quantify it in no other way than this is just damn infanticide. So on this panel, this Virginia Governor Ralph Northam decided that he was going to explain how a post-birth abortion would proceed. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I have the audio cut up here, and I hope I can play it. Because, you know, this is such a wonderful thing to hear about, right? Well, let's hear what this guy is actually saying during this.
Very contentious committee hearing yesterday when Fairfax County
Okay, come on.
Kathy Tran made her case for lifting restrictions on third trimester abortions as well as other restrictions now in place. And she was pressed by a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure and explain her answer?
Yeah, and
okay, this is the Governor Northam.
I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you first thing I would say, this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved.
This is why information is good. He's saying physicians. The New York law says you don't have to be a doctor to perform an abortion.
There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen.
Okay, here comes the description.
The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers. And this is why, Julie, that legislators, most of whom are men, by the way, shouldn't be telling a woman what she should and shouldn't be doing with her body.
Okay, I'm done with that audio cut, but that gives a perfect illustration of what these people are thinking. Abortion? Well, I asked myself, and probably you did too, Ron Edwards. I asked myself, okay, well, what's worse? What could possibly be worse than abortion up to actually giving birth? Because, 24 weeks, 3 months, etc., that's out the door. That's gone. Now you can have an abortion up to and including just before birth. Okay, where's that mark? What is that time? Well, that's when we sit down as mother and doctor, or in the case of the state of New York, mother and, I don't know, somebody else, where we sit down over a nice steaming hot cup of chai tea, and at great length and deliberation, we have the time to speak and voice our concerns. In the meantime, the baby is dying. Where have we gone, Ron Edwards, as a society, when we legislate for, I can think of no other word than this. This is infanticide. Folks, I've blown through the break, and I don't care. No more breaks for the end of the show until the end of the show. This is infanticide. I can think of no other word.
Well, the only other word I could tag on, which means the same thing, just death. It's death, and this is the way that you've got 7 states. But in the midst of all of this, I want to feature states that are doing good in the midst of the madness. You've got Ohio, which has the heartbeat bill that's coming back up now that goofball Kasich is out of the picture.
Yeah.
Mike DeWine, the new governor, said he's going to sign that bill. Indiana signed the bill. The heartbeat bill. The problem with that, when you have governors and populations of these states that are trying to do the right thing and hold the line against this infanticide, you have these liberal judges that all of a sudden that disagree with preserving life and protecting life, overruling the will of the people of those particular states and saying, well, I've decided that it is unconstitutional. Well, which is a lie that they're allowed to get away with. I think there needs to be more teaching about our constitutionally limited way of life and what it truly means in the Bill of Rights and all of that, so that when we are challenged with these black robes gone wild judges, leftist judges who want to overrule the will of the people whenever they're trying to do something good, they have to be challenged. There has to be a way to legally challenge these people and overrule those black robes gone wild, because they are definitely wrong when the people of a particular state like Ohio or Indiana that both voted for these heartbeat bills, the Indiana governor signed it into law, then came some leftist judge
yes,
and smacked it down. Now, a leftist judge has threatened the great state of Ohio. If you sign it into law, Mike DeWine, it will be smacked down. Well, I hope he goes ahead and signs it in anyway.
Sure.
And go through the motions. But we have to fight against this. We have to stop these judges from being allowed to. I mean, technically, they're not supposed to do that. So we do have precedent to stand on. But for some reason, they are allowed to overrule the will of the people who constitutionally voted for something that is good. Oh no, I don't agree with that. So therefore, I'm overruling 3 million voters of Ohio and kaput to that, or Indiana. And I think we have to start start getting smart and going after these kind of people behind the bench, who use the bench to push their leftist agenda of death.
That's
because China has it. I know Russia has that.
Oh, yeah.
You can bump a baby off, but the Netherlands are worse than all of them. Your child, I think it's up to 12 years of age, and they can be sick, tuberculosis or whatever. Oh, you know what? I don't want to deal with this. The child is suffering. I cannot stand to see Johnny having a hard time breathing with his asthma. He's got to go. Let's put him out of his misery. And you can do that.
About 2 weeks ago, Martin Luther King Day occurred, our celebration and honoring Martin Luther King. His daughter, Dr. Alveda King, has said basically Planned Parenthood purposely targets blacks for abortion. This is her quote, and I believe it to be correct, and I'd like your thought. She says, "When we said we'll no longer sit at the back of the bus, a place was being reserved for us down at the abortion clinic."
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because that even ties into what you read in my article. They can no longer lynch us or prevent us from doing this or going places, so they can no longer basically harm us physically. So they've convinced blacks to themselves. Abortion, gunning each other down. So many gunned down and aborted by themselves. White man, they rail against all the time. The Bowana, my father, that is them, and they've been into doing it to themselves. But a stupid. The black. I hate that these people are, but they are. Anytime.
Hey, Ron, we can hear you on and off. Your cell phone is cutting in and out. I don't know if you moved or you're walking around or something like that. Because when I talk on the air, I have to move around when I'm being interviewed. But your phone's starting to cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's much better. So basically, what she's saying is Planned Parenthood does in fact target black neighborhoods. I was mistaken. I need to correct myself. Alveda King, Dr. Alveda King, is the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and she says she believes the abortion mill still maintains, and I'll never understand this, Ron Edwards, I will never understand. They embrace Margaret Sanger's racist eugenics belief that blacks were overpopulating, and the reason for abortion was it didn't have anything to do with the health or welfare of the mother. It was to reduce the population. It was outright eugenics, and leftists and Democrats and Hillary Clinton and black Americans embraced this. I don't get that.
Well, here, I can really give it to you real quickly. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, much better, sir.
Okay. Here's the deal. Blacks have been brainwashed into hating America so much that, see, when you become blinded with bitterness and hatred yourself because of wrongs, especially that are way past, so you've been psyched out into focusing on evils of the past, and you're filled with bitterness, you're told you don't have a chance to really make it in society. Then at the same time, you're convinced not to even try to make it in society. Then you're taught to hate yourselves, your family structure and all of that. The women are taught to disrespect the men and the boys. Then they wonder why the men and the boys grow up mean and bitter and are not very nice to females. So this unrelenting cycle of craziness goes on and on and on. And many black Americans are so filled with hatred towards the United States of America. They prefer abortion, which is self-destruction. They prefer open borders, all these things, because they feel that it brings about the destruction of the United States of America. But they forgot, in the midst of all this, that they're destroying themselves with abortion, even though they think that they're sticking it to the man by participating in abortion, and they look at it the same way as open borders. Now, they're too stupid to understand that with the case of open borders, most of the people that are coming in our borders illegally, guess what? Those populations hate black people with a passion.
You walked into my next article. Holy moly. You and I are on the same wavelength. I need to go to that next article, but before I do, I want to give some more facts. It was 1921 that Margaret Sanger founded Planned Parenthood. Wasn't always called Planned Parenthood. That's a happy little euphemism that her original name, the nomenclature in 1921, when Margaret Sanger started this, it was called the Birth Control League. Margaret Sanger, she spoke to the Ku Klux Klan in New Jersey in 26. That's what kind of a person is Margaret Sanger, embraced by the left today. There's another story that I was going to go into. And I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's go into this article, then we'll transition into the next one, because you touched upon this, but this was an article that just came out in the Blaze, and I thought, I don't get this. The Blaze article says, this is the headline: Faith leaders to bless abortion clinic.
I saw that article.
Accessing and providing abortions are godly decisions. And then in this article up front are a lot of purposely, I would guess, placed black Americans. And in the back it says Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. And these are alleged religious leaders. In this photograph, they're quantified as faith leaders who had a clinic blessing for an abortion clinic in Columbus, Ohio. More of, from BZ, Ron Edwards, more of BZ saying, I don't get that. I don't get it.
I'm telling you, it's born out of hatred. It's born out of ignorance and stupidity. It's all these things in one. And the ironic thing that they would do that, I read that article and almost just blew up. I just almost incinerated.
I know.
Self-incinerated.
I know.
Here's the thing. I used to spend a lot of my summers in Columbus, Ohio. That was a very Christian-oriented city. I used to be around a lot of the church women. They would pray for that city, the growth of the city, the prosperity of that city. Both things happened. When I was a little boy going to Columbus, it was only about a city of about 400,000 people. Today, the city proper is just a hair short of 900,000, with a metropolitan area that's just about at 3 million. The city itself is the 14th largest city in the United States now. Very prosperous, grew up. Those prayers really blessed the city. Now it is being attacked by all this leftism just rushing in there. And I pray for that city because I don't want it to suffer a major decline or because it didn't go through the economic upheavals of many northern cities like Detroit or whatever. It only grew. It just continued to grow like Indianapolis did too. But even more so in a better way than Indianapolis, and the neighborhoods are nicer and things of that nature. But it's a way to bring about destruction in these nice pockets of America now. You had your old areas that were already messed up and full of leftism and all of that. Now they're infiltrating the good spots, like a Columbus, Ohio, and other cities that have been. Topeka, Kansas comes to mind. Used to be a very safe, middle America type city, birds tweeting and all of that. I didn't know. But by the 1990s, it was a major cocaine and drug running place. It had just been infiltrated. They bring these people in. They bring in abortion, and they destroy from within through the school systems. All of a sudden, there's, boom, good schools suddenly are bad. And they bring these people in of a different mentality to destroy the fabric of the country. Because it used to be like Utah. It used to be a red city. Red state. And they'd say, well, you can't do anything with those Mormons. They all vote Republican. Well, they started moving in people from leftists from California. Now it's a purple state. May soon be blue.
Yeah. It's an infection.
This is all part of it. It sounds like I'm meandering, but technically I'm not, because it is an orchestration. And it's all like an orchestra of leftism, whether it's the abortion, whether it's the education. They're all working together to bring about more immorality, that brings about a heavier degree of immorality, which brings around self-destruction from within in the country. It's just horrible. And they think they're being more sophisticated at the same time, because the Netherlands and China and Russia has these laws. Well, America is going to be more ill affected by these kinds of laws, because our foundation is totally different than the foundations of those other countries. They don't have a collective obligation with the God of the Bible. Our foundation is based upon that. There was a covenant that we made. America was the first and only nation in the history of the world that was specifically founded and dedicated to God, the God of the Bible. Israel was founded by God, was designated by God to be that nation, but man dedicated the United States of America originally to God. If you don't believe me, go to Plymouth Rock and a few other locations, and it's in writing.
Well,
so
it's what the Constitution says. The Constitution says, and that our rights are given to us not by government, but by God.
Yeah, and so when you recognize God-given rights, and then all of a sudden, through racism, hatred of black people, through stupidity and allowing abortion to become a practice by all people in America, all Americans, when you lower your standards to the point where you're self-destructive in this manner, that's what I'm concerned about with this country. Are self-destructive, and this is why I said earlier that we who know better, who know the right way, need to make sure that we are standing up like never, ever before.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter if the fight is difficult or whatever. I don't care about that. The Founding Fathers, you think they had a cakewalk? No. Do you think the Greatest Generation had a cakewalk during Second World War? No. Do you think it was a cakewalk during the Civil War? We are now in a civil war, so to speak, in this country today. It's do or die time. I believe that America will come out of this.
I do too.
Because enough of us are waking up and are saying, you know what, more and more we're going to get tired and start pushing back. And in some ways we're going to be pushing back physically, because not everyone on the right is going to continue to allow themselves to be beaten up and spat upon in restaurants because they have a MAGA hat on. Not everyone is going to continue to allow their cars to be keyed because they have something positive about the United States or Trump on their cars. Not everyone is going to allow their teenagers to be mistreated at school because they happen to be patriotic or they happen to like Trump. We're going to start fighting back in different arenas in this country. We have no choice. Not because I want to fight, not because I want to see stuff going on, but because we have no choice.
There is no other alternative. Kurt Schlichter basically came out. I interviewed him on Tuesday night.
I like him.
I spoke to Kurt Schlichter at length. He calls people like us militant normals. We're the normal people, but we're being forced to become militant. Now, what you said earlier leads to a perfect transition to this article, and there's a reason for me referencing this. You, Ron Edwards, already hit upon it. The article says, historic shift, more Hispanic than black voters in 2020. Whites declined to 66%. Now, the thrust of this was that there's a major shift that's going to help Democrats and liberals, is that 1/3 of the eligible voters in the 2020 presidential election are going to be non-white, and they're saying that's the first time ever. But the nugget to be taken out of this is that more Hispanic than black voters are going to be here in 2020. And so in reflection, when I first saw that article, my first thought is, considering the hashtag walk away movement, considering the hashtag Blexit movement, my thought was, all the bells and claxons went off in my brain, and my first thought was, listen up, American blacks. This is why you're poop on Democrat shoes. And oh yeah, it's also because you are no longer a guaranteed monolithic voting bloc. So as far as the Democrats are concerned, you are on the back of the bus. You are getting kicked to the curb because you dared to challenge the Democrats, and because you're no longer reliable, you're not monolithic. Well,
so here's the other.
Guess who's going to be
thing.
The priority?
But guess what? They did not expect for a 19% increase in support for Donald Trump among the Spanish speakers. They didn't expect that.
No. And
so if they start, if they become, and they are a larger population than black Americans, but if they vote the same levels that blacks do for the Democrat Party, 40 or 50% Hispanic public, and then you have, along with the 20% of.
Okay, you're starting to cut in and out again. I don't know if you've changed.
Okay, no, I'm in the same spot. Can you hear me now?
Huh. Okay. All righty.
Wow.
It was just going weird a little bit.
But you last hear? I'll just repeat.
But here's another point that I want to make, because we got about 7 more minutes before the end of the show.
Okay.
This just came out. And this is indicative of how the Democrats have latched on to the black American vote, but there's nothing happening. Nothing happening. Here's a data exclusive, and this is a 2018-2017 study, but it's still true today, and I bring it up because it's still true. Out of a data exclusive, what people in California determined is that this is staggering. 75% of black California boys don't meet state reading standards. 3 of 4 African American boys in California classrooms, they abjectly failed to meet reading and writing standards according to various tests. More than half of black boys scored in the lowest category on the English portion of the test, trailing behind, of course, their female counterparts. California spends tons of money on education. Where's it going? Where are the results? And no one is held to task for something as reprehensible like this. But I want to make another point. And I'd like you to weigh in on this, because I'm going to grab on your coattails right now and make a little bit of a prognostication and validate what it was that you said earlier. It ain't all bad. It ain't all horrible. Yes, this is terrible. This is reprehensible. The new bills that have been passed are terrible. But I think it's finally leading to the eyes of a lot of people being opened up as to what's going on. Leftists at this time are going hard a port, 70% tax rates, hot and cold running abortions. You will not be able to have independent insurance. The government is going to do it for you. Of course, that'll lead to strict clamps down on what you can get in terms of your medical insurance. But you made the point that it ain't all bad. And by 2020, I have to say, Ron Edwards, I hope the Democrats keep this up, because they will hand over the presidency again in 2020. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
I'm in total agreement. I'll go one further with you, that they will turn back the return of Congress to the Republicans. Oh. And hopefully when that happens, that this time around, the Republicans will have a spine, and they will fight, and the people will not stupidly elect rhinos like Paul Ryan and all of that stuff, because they are a waste as far as I'm concerned. It's because of Paul Ryan and people like him that they lost the House, because if you're do-nothings, unfortunately people will turn around and vote for something much worse than even Paul Ryan, and that's exactly what they did. And so rather than fighting to see if there's a better Republican, which in some cases there were in the election, they say, well, screw it, because of what Paul Ryan did, we'll just go all Democrat, and which is like another form of political suicide as far as I'm concerned. But people have to become more wise, as well as when they do decide to fight and get involved in the issues of the day. They've got to be wise about it, and with the end goal of victory, not just fighting to fight, but serious victory. And they have to understand what it takes to get victory, and everyone's not going to be using the same tactics, because every state has different issues and all of that. Different regions of the country has different approaches and all that. But we've got to be much smarter, and just as important, we've got to be a lot tougher. Very, very tough. Because right now, I hate to say this, but the leftists are feeling their oats. They're getting away with this stuff, with the Xanacide. They're getting away with everything that they bring up. But you're right. What's going to happen is the same thing that Ali Obama did. Ali Obama was the slap across America's face that woke her up, woke up enough of us. And that's how we ended up with Donald Trump. Now, because of their hatred of Donald Trump, not because of Donald Trump was a playboy or this, that, and the other. They say these little things, but the real reason why there's such a hatred and such a desperate push by the leftists to just push our country over the cliff morally is because Donald Trump has upset the globalist apple cart. He is standing in between America and those who literally want to put the final nail in our coffin through internationalism or globalism and UN control or influence in our nation. And he is the only one who is standing up strong, at least among the presidents, who has stood up strong against nations that have screwed over us left and right. Wasn't it Ali Obama, talking about screwing over the station, who said, what is he needs a magic wand, something about what he's going to use, a magic wand to bring those jobs back?
Yeah, and then boom, then they come back.
Yeah, but those leftists did not want these jobs to come back. You think Nasty Pelosi really wanted those jobs to come back and blacks to get all these jobs? No, man, it's about those people are out to destroy this country through despair. And here comes Donald Trump, billionaire, New York street fighter, and bammo, there is a huge chance now for this country to recover, because he is standing in the way and saying, look, this is the United States of America. My duty is to the American people, not the United Nations. And that sent them over the edge. That is the crux of the matter.
That is.
Bernie?
Absolutely. I call that PSH. And on this show for you, I'm not going to tell you what that stands for, but folks who listen to me know that's pretty much what's happening right now. Folks are finding out that Donald Trump cannot be threatened. He cannot be coerced. The thing that pisses them off is that what customarily worked on Galps in politics before is not working now with Donald John Trump, the guy with a dead orange cat on his head. So, folks, I got to tell you this. We have been talking tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. We've been talking to Ron Edwards of the Ron Edwards Experience and the Notebook. Again, please tell people where you can be heard, where you can be found on the web, and other social media sites that you have.
Okay, you can find me on the web, theronedwards.com. That is my website. You can also check me out on Twitter at the Ron Edwards. You can follow me there. You can follow me on Facebook, Ron Edwards Public Figure page, and Friends of the Edwards Notebook. I'm on LinkedIn, and also you can read my columns at newswithviews.com and also at Capitol Hill Outsider. You can read my columns there as well. They're archived, and they're once-a-week columns. Also, the Edwards Notebook, just a little update for you. The Edwards Notebook is now on 152 stations around the country. The last time I was on this show, it was 120.
120,
and it has been steadily going up ever since, and it's going to be more and more. Wonderful blessing. Also, the Ron Edwards Experience Talk Show every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on AM 1180, KCKQ in beautiful Reno.
Yep.
But you can hear it worldwide on AmericaMatters.us, SHR Media, again at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And it is, you can hear it also again at 12 a.m. Sundays on the Talk America Radio Network. And there are other radio stations that carry it in rebroadcast as well in Georgia and in Florida and in Utah. But anyway, that's about it, I think. And I just want to tell you, sir, that it's a great pleasure to be on your show. You're a great talk show host, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully you'll have me back again. It's just a treat.
I will definitely. Yeah. I'm proud to know you. I'm happy to have met you. I will definitely have you back on the show. So thank you again. Most of the people that I talk to happen to be on the East Coast, and there's a 3-hour difference. So it's 10:05 on the left coast, which means it's 1:05 where you are. I got to thank you ever so kindly once again for taking the time to talk to me tonight in the saloon. The chat room sure liked you, of course, and you are always welcome to come back. So, Mr. Ron Edwards, thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. You take care, sir. God bless, and good night, sir.
God bless you. God bless America, and may America bless God.
Precisely. That deserves that. That was Ron Edwards. And, folks, again, another 2 hours devoted to Ron Edwards. I was ever so blessed to have Ron on here tonight for 2 hours, and I thank him again for having done that.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can do it on social media. I'm on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook at Bloviating Zeppelin. I used to give you my hate mail. I used to give you my email address, but actually I said send me hate mail. So guess what? Lots of people sent me hate mail, so I'm not giving out my email address anymore. Lesson learned. Promotional consideration for the show, by the way, is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and, of course, the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And by Pratt & Whitney Engines, providing thrust you can trust. Once again, thanks to my KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be consorting most deaf in less than a half hour. Thanks for listening live. Thanks to Ron Edwards. Folks, you have a great weekend. Super Bowl Sunday, I think, if you're still watching football. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.